Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the final round of the MAI Bangkok Business Challenge at SASIN 2014. So let me remind you that the result or the winner will be announced at 3:30 p.m. this afternoon, and it will also be televised live on Money Channel. So we have last team today to present to you. Please give a warm welcome to Team A76 Corrosion Inhibitors from Rice University, United States. So let me remind the team, you have 30 minutes to make your presentations, during which the judges may ask questions at any time after the 5 minutes protected time. Okay? And you receive 3 time notifications, one after the 5 minutes, to allow for the interactive session, and then 3 minutes and 1 minute before the end. Okay? Please, the timekeepers are here at the front, so keep an eye on them. Okay, I think we're all ready. You ready?
Very much so.
Very much so.
Very
okay.
much so.
Good, good, good. So we're going to start the clock as soon as you start. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Lauren Thompson, the CEO of A76 Corrosion Inhibitors. First, I'd like to thank SASIN and the corporate sponsors for having us here. I'd also like to introduce my team: Brendan Phillips-Garrett, Tim Aramil, Eduardo Garza, and Cameron Hatch. We're here today to talk to you about corrosion. In 2010, an oil rig about 100 miles off the coast of Louisiana caught fire. This fire was determined to be the result of corrosion, and it cost the company $83 million. In extreme cases, corrosion can lead to catastrophic events in the oil and gas industry. But on a day-to-day basis, downtime as a result of corrosion can reduce revenues while increasing costs. And corrosion is a constant problem in the oil and gas industry as they work in extreme environments. We have a solution. A76 is a corrosion inhibitor and lubricant that works in high humidity, high salinity, and extreme temperature environments, down to negative 30 degrees Celsius and up to more than 300 degrees Celsius. A76 is protected by trade secret, and we have the exclusive rights to this product. In the test photo here, you can see the results of a 47-day side-by-side test using 20% salt fog. A76 far outperformed the competitors. Now, this photo may look too good to be true. So why should you believe it? Because of this man. Our inventor is Dr. James Tour. He is one of the leading chemists in the world and has over 100 patents to his name. In 2013, Dr. Tour was named R&D Scientist of the Year by R&D Magazine. We are very proud to have him as our inventor for A76. As I mentioned before, A76 far outlasts competitors. This means that it reduces downtime for mission-critical equipment. Also, A76 works as a corrosion inhibitor and lubricant on a variety of metals. This makes A76 a single solution product for a multitude of needs. A76 is ready for use in just 5 minutes. This is significantly less than the 1 to 4 hours required by competing products. And finally, A76 is non-carcinogenic, unlike competing products, and this brings A76 in line with corporate safety practices. And now, Brendan will talk to you more about the market.
Thanks, Lauren. On the slide behind me, we've given you a diagram of an average oil field development process, starting with exploration seismic, ending with production. We're targeting here right in the middle, at exploration drilling, appraisal drilling, and development. Our target clients like Baker Hughes, Halliburton, NOV, or the directional drilling companies like Childress Directional Drilling, or the heavy metal manufacturers like Valve Technologies, need a corrosion-resistant solution that they can use to supply their clients like ExxonMobil, Shell, and Chevron that you may be more familiar with. In our segment, our target client will spend $475 million by 2017. In 2012, they spent $338 million on products similar to A76. Other energy users, solar, nuclear, and downstream refining, will spend $2 billion on products like A76 by 2017. Our total addressable energy market just in the United States will be $2.5 billion by 2017. The market's growing, and they have a demonstrated propensity to spend. So how ready are we to address this developing need? We've completed the R&D and the production process for 4 variants of A76. A76 Super, our flagship product. A76 Green, our most environmentally sensitive product. A76 Light, intended for use in dipping baths. And finally, A76 Electronics, which is intended to be used on printed circuit boards. We've completed the MSDS sheets. MSDS is the Material Safety Data Sheet, a legal requirement in the United States for us to produce, sell, transport, and use these products in a field environment. We've also secured all IP rights for these products. We have the worldwide exclusive license to A76 for all applications. And finally, we have field validation and third-party testing in progress. The NCC, the National Corrosion Center in Houston, Texas, has samples of A76 right now undergoing validation and testing. 2 great potential clients, Valve Technologies and Halliburton, both of them multi-billion-dollar companies, have samples of A76 right now and are in field trials. And with that, Tim's going to talk about how we're going to operate and deal with our outsourced supply chain.
Thank you, Brendan. Our operations are centered around protecting the A76 trade secret. And we're going to do that by initially sourcing the raw materials to separate chemical blenders to blend parts of the A76 formula. They will then send their parts to a centralized blender to combine everything to formulate the final A76 product.
Question. Your product stuff is great, and I read a lot of it, and I want to go directly to some financials. What you're saying, what you said was that there's roughly, let's say, a $500 million market in 2017, and you're projecting revenue of, let's say, somewhere between 10 and $20 million. So let's say that's about 0.5% or maybe 1% of the market. So what I'm questioning is that if this is such a great product, why do you only have either less than 1% of the market or maybe 1% of the market? Are you not aggressive enough, or is it not ready for sale yet, or is it really hard to sell in that market with a long selling cycle?
That's a great question. We will talk about our financials in a couple of slides later.
No, that's the beauty of this, is that you get to talk about it now.
So
feel free, because we're going to jump around. Yeah. So jump right into it. If you've got a slide that addresses that, feel free. Otherwise, please try to address it as best that you can.
Okay. Well, we'll pass this on to our CFO, who's to do the financials, and can explain that perfectly to you.
Thank you, Tim. So yeah, this is we have to be very careful with this type of customers. We have a long cycle, and these are high volume customers, so we want to be very conservative, and our numbers reflect a very conservative approach to gather these customers. We've been in contact. For our first year, you will see our financials in a second. We're trying to secure 8 to 10 customers, most of which we have already talked to right now. But we see that they will want to test slowly in one oil platform initially, and then move on to another. Our numbers are reflecting an increase in those customers, but now, right now, if we're showing this to investors, we want to project as conservative as possible. We have done another analysis of increased market share faster. Sorry, the hockey stick, if you might. But we want to stay conservative and see our first year. Once we have done that, we'll revise and see if our sales cycles are even better. Okay, so then that brings me to the next question that's related to financial. I looked at your NPV calculation, and what I saw was about $10 million roughly of the calculation I saw in the report. And 96% of that came in the terminal value, meaning after the 5th year or so. And so, I'm just worried as an investor that either something's happening here that you're not able to really get the money in the beginning, and that could just be you're really conservative. But if you're really conservative, well, how can I then base my idea to invest? So, with 96% of the value of that 10 million NPV coming after year 4 or 5, can you give me some understanding about what's going on there? Well, everything will be based on very important milestones that I will show you right now. So, for example, the money that we're looking is $1.5 million, right? But this is over 2 years. In the first 6 months, we just need this amount of money to validate, to proof of concept. We are going to, as Brendan was mentioned before, we're going to do stringent third-party testing to validate that this is a product for the oil and gas. And then, as well, we'll do our corporate structure. But we want to make sure that this is the market that we need to target, and that test will allow us to do that with a very small investment. The NPV will definitely grow in year one when we reach industrial production. You will see your value in your investment will go up. But the most important part will come in year two when we scale production and our margins increase. Right now, in year one, it will be only 40% margin, which is not acceptable. But in year 2 and 3, we're expecting 80%, 90% margin with scaling production. So that's why the conservative being is starting way low. We're going to break even in year 3, which is being this conservative, even being this conservative, we're breaking even in year 3.
So then one last thing, and then I'm going to turn it over to my my honorable judges around me, is that your discount rate that I'm seeing for your NPV says 16%?
Yes.
Okay, so from most people can get a discount rate or a return, let's say, in the stock market of maybe 10 or something like that. For this type of investment, I think I need to get like 40%, 50%. So if I were to apply that, then that 10 million NPV would be more like 5 or 6 million NPV. Have you looked at some sensitivity of the value and
Yes.
and all that?
We have done that, and we have even done. We have discounted our value by a liquidity ratio as well for the end of the valuation.
So let me just ask that then: is that 10 million already discounted? Is there something added on to that 16%?
That's yes. In addition to that, we have the liquidity discount as well.
So what is the IRR? Let's say it this way. What is the IRR of the investor?
We expect this is something that we're still trying to forecast, and we will do once we have done our testing to see the actual market.
No, but you are proposing something, right? 1.5. You're seeking 1.5 million, right? You're telling investor that give me 1.5 million for X% stake. But okay, 47% IRR. But actually, I would say for a startup like, for startup company, investor look in terms of multiples, like.
Yes. So
2 times of the investment or whatever, not 46% or 7 times, whatever. Do you think 46% IRR is high enough to justify the venture capital to invest in this?
Yes, at this point in time, yes. We follow a very important study was done with one of the major accounting firms in the US, and they have, for this type of chemical manufacturing, 8 to 10 times EBITDA. So that's what we're following, and we're talking to our advisors, this is a range to start being very conservative, that they know that this will definitely increase, because we're extremely conservative. And all of our advisors and possible investors, which are also in the board, recommend that, and they know that once our margins increase to the 87% mark, their IRR will go way higher than that. And that's why we are not asking for the full money up front.
What I'm saying is that if you ask about, you talk about 8 and 10 times, right? That's multiples, right? PE
Yes.
multiples or what?
EBITDA.
EBITDA multiples, okay. But the point is 8 to 10 times. If you apply to the public company, whatever, with consistent earnings growth, that would be fine, okay? But if you apply the same thing to the startup, which there are a lot of risks in the future, I think that could be on a high side.
Well, in year 5, we'll be operating for 5 years, and we will not be considered a startup anymore. So we will expect to get this type of valuation based on this study. This study included a couple of startups as well. So that's why we're using this number.
If I may change the topic a little bit, I'm sure we'll go back to the finances anyway. The sales process. I'm very interested in the sales process, and I think this refers to some of the stuff and some of the companies that you mentioned. Surely your potential buyers are already using products.
Yes.
So I'll be very interested. Most people that have a new product say that everything is horrible, but now we have this new product. But in reality, they're already using something, and I don't hear them complaining. So there's obviously some convincing to do.
Yes.
How is what they currently use sold? You seem to be addressing companies at the headquarter level, which seems to take time. They need to do a lot of testing. In my experience, some of these things are decided by engineers who move from rig to rig, and they actually are allowed to do their own purchasing or say, I want this brand or I want that brand. How's that currently sold, and how are you going to break into those probably quite personal relationships with Christmas presents, et cetera, et cetera. Have you thought about how that's actually going to work? I'm sure you do, because you have the experience.
Definitely. Our chief
May
marketing...
I add on to this? So who will be your competitors also?
Oh, sure. Our chief marketing officer has definitely researched the market.
Fantastic. So first, let's talk about switching costs. Structurally speaking, our product is similar in consistency and form to other products on the market, meaning that you can use the same application technologies of spray, paint, and dip for A76 versus the competitors. So switching costs are essentially zero, mainly because you're looking at inventory, not looking at hardware and equipment. Secondly, and who's the buyer? We have two buyers. There's the engineering group and there's the finance group. The engineering group are giving a spec sheet, like the guy in the rig that you mentioned, at which point he decides what product out there meets his needs. The finance group looks at the budgets, and they look and they say, we're spending too much on corrosion control right now. As far as the sales cycle goes, we have two entrances to these customers. First, on the engineering side, we're planning on attending conferences like OTC, the Offshore Technology Conference, publishing papers in SPE, Society of Petroleum Engineers, regarding corrosion. That'll break awareness into those engineering side, where they need to see the technical components. Parallel to that, we're going to be working on the finance organization to show them the budget considerations they can use to apply A76 in a more wide environment, and how they can save money and save time. For our particular clients, one second, let me get back there. Our particular clients are very interested in that little segment in the orange there with downtime. And they're very interested in how do you reduce the application cycles and how do you reduce the number of applications that are required. Given that A76 does significantly outperform the competitors, we believe we have a convincing engineering argument and a convincing economic argument for our buyers. But yes, we do look at a long sales cycle as well. These are enterprise buyers, so it's going to be a challenge for us. Oh, who are the competitors? There's a few. Aegeon Corporation is one of the major players. Beyond that, WD-40 is the brand name that you know. For our particular target market, WD-40 is on this slide to give you an understanding of sort of what these players look like, multi-million-dollar companies. And then NTI, Northern Technology Corporation, they also specialize in oil and gas rust protection and anti-corrosion inhibitors. So if you're looking for benchmarks, we also have some numbers that we can jump to show you what the revenue numbers are for these clients, or for these competitors as well.
You mentioned about the key strengths of your product as being the salinity factor, right? That can withstand like in the salt fog situation, and then you're talking about 47 days longevity protection, right? And you have done some tests, okay, by comparing some kind of part of equipment that is dipped with A76 with Corrosion X or whatever. I'm interested to know in what place of the world you have that situation of 20% salt fog, and what kind of equipment in that place of the world or in whatever rigs that you would need 47 days protection.
So that test, the 20% salt fog test, is the industrial test for salt fog prevention. Most natural environments don't get you that kind of number. Beyond that, though, in the oil field, specifically on offshore platforms, when you have brine water coming back, first, that tends to fog up. Secondly, when you're offshore as well, with hot weather or with large crashing waves, that can also get a substantial salt fog. For the actual pieces of equipment, we're looking at things like valves, couplings, compressing devices, return systems, pieces that need to be lubricated and need to be assembled and disassembled on a regular basis. The longevity of protection is crucial in that if you have a piece of equipment that needs to be taken apart in order to have the corrosion inhibitor reapplied, you lose time. So if we can give clients more comfort in that number and more comfort that their critical equipment is protected for longer periods of time, we save them time and money. So with that,
what you're going to do is you're going to go to financial guys and engineers, and you're going to show them your bacon slide, and they're going to say, great, let's do a test.
Yes.
Right? And they're not going to place any orders until they've thoroughly tested this out. That's why you say this is a very slow sales cycle. Get that completely. At the end of the test, they'll either buy you or they won't. If they don't buy you, you're out of business. If they do buy you, they're going to place huge quantity orders. That's why, getting back to the financial and the IRR issues, if you're going to succeed, you're going to succeed in a big way. And I think the hockey stick will work in your case. Okay, so can you address that issue? If this thing works, don't be conservative. How are you going to scale this up really in a big way and convince people like Khun Sapon to invest money because he's going to get 10 times his money back?
Yes, that's something that we'll work with as soon as we get the first year of we will secure that.
Oh, that's not exciting. Come on, excite us about the hockey stick. Is there real
get positive.
Yeah, I mean, is there real
response.
Potential here? We want to make real money.
Yeah,
we
but
want to
we'll-
be excited by you.
But once we have done that in the first year, we will not ask for you $1.5 million. We will ask for you 20. And the market share that we'll reach at 5 years can be 30%. We have projected that, and we have seen that with our margins, when we can show our investor, hey, remember the 40% gross margin that I showed you? Now it's 90, now it's 80. That's exciting, and that's when we can see the hockey stick. We're not going to present that to real investors because it's a real business we want to be working on until we have those numbers ready. But this has a huge potential, and we will know with very short amount of money in the first years of operation.
And we are excited to see that kind of growth. In the first year, and this is something we spoke about yesterday in our judging, is we're going to work for that proof of concept so that investors are secure in what they're investing. And then we're going to start going in for those higher numbers, as Eduardo just mentioned, that $15 million investment, so we can grow very fast and strongly. Because we do want to see this expand to just a huge company, as well as being able to expand into other industries.
Okay, so let's address that then. Mm-hmm. Do you have any revenue numbers? You may not have it on a slide, you may have it in your head, of what's the size of your competitors, or what's the size of WD-40 as far as revenue is concerned? Just so we could think if you could take away market share from them or something like that, because obviously your product's superior, right? So
at the last financial statement I looked at for WD-40, their annual revenues, here you go, you can...
Yeah. Great.
You
okay, that's what we want to see.
Yeah, it's about $244 million for WD-40 based on their last financials.
So where do you see your opportunity here amongst these different competitors? Where are you going to... This market is probably not going to expand. It'll expand by 5 or 10% maybe every year, but you're going to take market share from somebody to get the money that we're going to enjoy and retire 10 years from now. So which one is it going to come off of most, do you think?
There's a combination because their corrosion prevention is also used in a multitude of industries. We showed you that 5% expansion for just the energy market. There's also the transportation, infrastructure, marine applications, and household, as well as agriculture that we can go into.
So you don't want revenue from these guys, or you're not going to get it from these guys?
Oh, we love their revenue
so
too.
So just let's talk about that, since that's what we have in our hand right now. Mm-hmm. And then we can go on to where else you can get it. Are you going to take market share from these guys? You're showing us a slide right now. Are you going to take market share from them?
Yes, we will be taking some market share from them, and part of the way that we will be doing that is because we do have a superior product. A76 has been tested against their products.
But you're showing in 5 years $20 million of revenue, and these guys are $200, $300, $400 million of revenue. Why aren't you a $200, $300, $400 million company?
Again, that goes back to the question of being conservative. Because we are breaking into this industry, breaking into the sales cycle, we did want to be conservative in our estimates. Eduardo, you can always speak more to that, but and then also, if it would help, we can explain more about our operations.
And also to add to the point that Lauren was making, WD-40 is currently in household applications. That's an area that we want to get to, but we're focused on oil and gas initially. And so that's why the market share that comes from WD-40 initially will be somewhat small. And then as we expand into the other areas that they've mentioned, then that number, that percentage will grow in terms of how much we acquire their business and take market share away.
I want to get back to a question one of the other judges asked a few minutes ago. You seem to think that you're going to convert people purely on financing and on results, yet you've got buyers for WD-40 and Ajon, and they've been talking to these engineers for years and going to their Christmas parties and kids' birthday parties and have personal relationships. How do you break into that?
So the question of how do you break an established relationship is tough for any startup. For us, though, because we do have extremely convincing both economic and test result proof, given that what motivates these buyers? These buyers are motivated by, did I hit my budget numbers, or did my rig blow up? We can help them achieve both of those things, to not have the rig blow up and to hit their budgets. That gets them a better bonus. It makes them look good in front of their boss. And it gives them an active reason to choose our product. It's not just avoiding some terrible catastrophe. It's also about how can they generate revenue. These are enterprise consumers with enterprise budgets and enterprise purchasing cycles. Fighting our way through a procurement department will be difficult, absolutely. And oil and gas procurement especially is known for its stringent quality standards and very high requirements for proof of concept and very high requirements for actual evidence that the product does what it says that it does.
If I can ask a little bit more about that. I used to work in oil and gas procurement. Basically, how decentralized do you find that these decisions are? I didn't quite get that answer before. Are these decisions made by the person on the rig who gets measured on his downtime or no downtime? Or do you really think that there is a procurement officer that you can convince and then he will go for all 100 rigs that's under the company? What's your experience?
So
some of it sounds more plausible than the other.
Okay, sure. There's two things there. One is you have the discretionary budget on the rig itself, and the second is that the corporate budget that you have for the overall rig fleet. The discretionary budget, that's the product that particular rig hand knows. So he goes out and he buys that particular product because it works for him. He's onshore, it's easy enough to get to. If you're looking at offshore application, especially offshore rigs, there is no 7-Eleven around the corner you can go run to buy your corrosion resistance products. The supply boat comes out and it's stocked with corrosion resistance, that's what you get. You just deal with it at that point. From our point of view, the onshore market is a very different game than the offshore market. We're targeting much more on the offshore than the onshore, but because of two things. First, because of the way our product performs, and secondly, because of the centralization of procurement, and I believe very strongly in that.
It's also a reason why the North Sea in Europe might be interesting for you, because the extreme conditions, even compared to the Gulf in the States, North Sea is much worse.
Absolutely. The Gulf has the combination of the high humidity and the salt fog. North Sea obviously has the extreme temperature lows plus the salt fog problem. And given that the drilling companies headquartered in Houston also have substantial operations in the North Sea, that should be baked into some of our assumptions about the market size and the growth potential.
Are you planning on only being in the United States, or are you going to expand internationally?
More?
Initially, we have picked a target industry and a target market where we will be selling, and that's the U.S. Gulf Coast. But we are planning to expand both in the U.S. and internationally. As you just mentioned, in the North Sea, there is a huge need for a corrosion inhibitor that can work in those extreme environments. We are definitely open to that, but we wanted to have a target, be very targeted initially, rather than trying to come out and say, we're going to be everything to everyone, sell internationally, and set unrealistic expectations.
I saw in the appendix about the compliance standards. You mentioned a lot of standards that comply by WD-40, like CPS, IA, VOC, whatever, LATCO, right? Mm-hmm. For your product to be marketable to those rigs, do they have to comply with these standards? And if so, how long will it take?
There's a variation for compliance. A76 is already California Proposition 65 and Montreal Protocol compliant. These are both environmental compliance standards. In the slide here, you can see that we are planning to meet and exceed standards for ISO 14001 and RC 14001. And our A76 green version has no volatile organic compounds. This also makes it safer for users. And then we are planning to have lean operations. So that, again, is going to help to reduce that environmental footprint. And then finally, since we are in the business of reducing corrosion, we can expand the equipment lifetime. So with all of these combined, we can help greatly with environmental sustainability, which can also help with the regulatory environment.
But let's be specific about the standard that comply by WD-40. Do you have to comply with that?
For specific standards, we do meet those standards as well. In A76, we have the material safety data sheets, and it does clarify that we are non-hazardous, non-carcinogenic, and so we are a safe alternative and something that can meet the regulatory.
So you already comply?
So we meet the regulatory environment.
You need to get the certificate or not?
And that's some of the testing that we're doing right now, too, with the National Corrosion Center to get some of those additional certifications.
How long will it take?
The products are currently with them, so for each test, it varies based on which test is being run, and Tim can clarify those tests a little
We
more.
have 2 minutes. Is there a specific area of the presentation that you would like to see? We have the team, advisory board, something that we still not covered yet, but we definitely prefer
Yes,
to.
so will the 5 of you work full-time on this after you graduate, assuming you graduate, and what type of salaries will you be taking?
Sure, let me start with fielding that. So yes, this is real. This will be our job. I'm not looking for additional employment. A76 is going to be my career. And right now, so we are actively fundraising right now. The salaries will be low. We're going to be eating a lot of ramen noodles because we want to put the money into the company, not just pocketing it and going home and buying a BMW or something. And I'm sorry, there was one more part to your question.
Time. What about the other 4 gentlemen?
Yes, we'll be a full-time team.
Just can you just quickly summarize the ownership of the technology with Dr. Tour, just so I understand? You've got a very short time to do it.
Yeah, sure. So I'll go through it really quickly. We do have an exclusive license and option agreement with Dr. Tour right now. We are in that, and he is part of our advisory board. He did not want equity in the company, but we've already negotiated that, and we're really excited about this. He chose us over 2 other companies that approached him with offers, and they are existing chemical manufacturers, and we convinced him we are the right team, and he is excited to work with us as well, and we are very pleased to have him on board.
You've got 30 seconds to summarize and convince us to invest.
Okay, let me take that. So let's talk about exit. There's 2 approaches. Exits to these 2 types of companies, the oil field services or corrosion inhibitors. As we mentioned before, the IRR is 46% based on these numbers. And just to summarize, this is a breakthrough product. You can look at the picture and see the value there. Our focus is on a targeted market so that we can gain the traction we need.
I'm afraid that's all we have time for. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Team A76 Corrosion Inhibitors.
เอาละค่ะคุณผู้ชมคะจบลงแล้วนะคะสำหรับการนำเสนอทั้ง 6 กลุ่มค่ะกลุ่มที่ 6 นี้นะคะเป็นการนำเสนอนะคะ A76 Corrosion Inhibitors นะคะจากมหาวิทยาลัย Rice University สหรัฐอเมริกาค่ะความน่าสนใจนะคะนำเสนอนะคะสารยับยั้งการผุกร่อนในพื้นผิวของโลหะความน่าสนใจจะเป็นอย่างไรบ้างนะคะลองติดตามดูกับคุณแพรเลยค่ะ
ทีมนี้มาแรงมากเลยนะคะมีข้อดีหลายประเด็นมากเลยนะคะอย่างแรกเลยก็คือจะเป็นเรื่องผลิตภัณฑ์ของเขา A76 เนี่ยคือเป็นสารเคมีที่ช่วยยับยั้งการผุกร่อนนะคะการผุกร่อนทำให้แล้วก็เป็นสารหล่อลื่นด้วยซึ่งอันนี้เป็นอะไรที่จำเป็นมากๆเลยในอุตสาหกรรมน้ำมันและก๊าซนะคะซึ่งตอนนี้ก็มีปัญหาอยู่ตลอดเลยแล้วก็อันนี้เป็นผลิตภัณฑ์แรกที่เป็นมิตรต่อสิ่งแวดล้อม
แต่เนื่องจากว่าเขากำลังพูดถึงว่าเขาเน้นตลาดที่สหรัฐอเมริกาซึ่งมีผู้เล่นรายใหญ่เยอะมากเรากำลังพูดถึงมูลค่าตลาดเป็นหมื่นล้านเป็นแสนล้านเนี่ยนะครับการที่บริษัทเหล่านี้เขาจะมาลงทุนถือว่าเสี่ยงมากเกินไปไหมครับสำหรับทางด้านของสตาร์ทอัพอย่าง Corrosion เนี่ยนะฮะ
เพราะว่า presentation เขามีข้อมูลค่อนข้างครบครันมากเลยคือแพรก็สนใจลงทุนเหมือนกันนะคะเพราะว่ามีตอบได้ทุกคำถามเลยซึ่งอันนี้เป็นที่ดีมากแล้วก็ที่ชอบไปมากกว่านั้นก็คือ attitude ของทีมคือเขาบอกเลยว่าเขาค่อนข้างถ่อมตัวในเรื่องการเงินด้วยแล้วก็เรื่องตลาดแรกที่เขาจะ target นะคะก็คือแค่ในสหรัฐแต่ว่าทางกรรมการก็เห็นเลยบอกว่าเนี่ยคุณไปได้ทั่วโลกเลยเขาก็รู้อีกว่าเขาจะควรจะไปที่ไหนอย่างเช่นทะเลเหนือของยุโรปอย่างเงี้ยค่ะหรือว่าในทางประเทศอาหรับซึ่งผลิตน้ำมันเยอะอยู่แล้วค่ะก็เลยชอบที่เขาไม่อะไรอ่ะไม่คิดไม่ aggressive มากเกินไปไม่ให้ตัวเลขมันบานมาก
มีประเด็นในเรื่องของผู้เล่นรายอื่นๆด้วยอย่างคู่แข่งอีกประมาณ4เจ้าเขาบอกว่ามีวิธีการจะแบบว่าแบ่งส่วนแบ่งของตลาดมาได้อย่างไรอันนี้ก็เป็นความท้าทายของธุรกิจนี้ด้วยใช่ไหมคะ
ค่ะคือแบรนด์ที่มีอยู่แล้วที่สหรัฐเนี่ยมันเป็นแบรนด์ที่คนทั่วไปรู้จักเพราะว่ามันเป็น household product มันเป็นผลิตภัณฑ์ที่คนในบ้านใช้เนี่ยค่ะแต่ว่าเขาเนี่ยทางทีมเนี้ยทางจาก Rice เนี่ย A76 เขาจะ target ไปทางบริษัทน้ำมันเลยค่ะบริษัทที่ทำ exploration
ใช่ค่ะ
แต่ลงทุนกว่าจะได้ผลตอบแทนใช้เวลานานมากนะครับผมน่าจะมีอุปสรรคอะไรบ้างนะครับที่อาจจะทำให้ผลการดำเนินงานหรือว่า return ที่จะมาในอนาคตเนี่ยไม่ได้เป็นไปตามเป้าหมายที่เขาได้มีการวางแผนนะครับ
ค่ะเพราะว่าอุปสรรคก็มีอยู่แน่นอนอยู่แล้วแต่ว่าตอนนี้เขายังทดสอบไม่เสร็จเลยตอนนี้เขาอยู่ใน testing period กับ third party ก็คือในคณะที่3ซึ่งเขาก็บอกว่าเขาต้องรอดูผลของอันนี้ก่อนเขาถึงจะตอบคำถามเรื่องทั้งด้านการเงินและไอ้ตัว productให้แน่นอนได้ซึ่งอันนี้แพรก็ชอบอีกเหมือนกันว่าเขาถ่อมตัวแล้วเขาก็รู้ด้วยว่าอะไรมันยังไม่เสร็จอะไรเสร็จแล้วอะไรพูดได้อย่างเงี้ยค่ะค่ะตอนนี้ก็แอบเชียร์ทั้งศาสินแล้วก็ทีมนี้เลย
อ๋อค่ะ
ศาสินได้ลุ้นชนะเลิศในวันนี้ไหมฮะ
เพราะว่ามีสิทธิ์นะคะ
ครับ
เพราะว่า2ทีมนี้ค่อนข้างมั่นใจมากเพราะว่าข้อมูลครบผลิตภัณฑ์ดีทีมดี
สูสี
ค่ะ
วิธีการ
ใช่
นำเสนอก็ดีด้วยใช่ไหมคะ
presentation ดีมากแล้วว่าทั้ง2ทีมนี้ตอบคำถามคณะกรรมการได้หมดทุกข้อเลย
ครับผม
ค่ะ
ครับคุณแพรอยากจะทิ้งท้ายข้อมูลหรือว่าในแง่ของความน่าสนใจสำหรับทางด้านของศาสินยังไงบ้างครับ
ค่ะขอบพระคุณค่ะพระขอประชาสัมพันธ์ให้ศาสินนิดนึงนะคะ เดือนมีนาเริ่มด้วยวันพุธหน้านะคะวันที่ 5 มีนาเรามีงานบรรยายเรื่องรัฐธรรมนูญนะคะโดยทางศูนย์เราเป็นคนจัดกับสมาคมส่งเสริมจริยธรรมและธรรมาภิบาลนะคะแล้วก็วันที่ 19 มีนาเราได้เกียรติจากธนาคาร Standard Chartered Bank จะมี CEO ค่ะขอโทษทีค่ะ Chief Group Executive ของ Standard Chartered Bank มาจากลอนดอนเลยนะคะคุณปีเตอร์แซนจะมาพูดที่ศาสินวันที่ 19 มีนาค่ะก็ขอเรียนเชิญด้วยแล้วก็อย่างสุดท้ายคือเรามี Master Class Workshop สำหรับทาง Sustainability โดยเฉพาะเลยทางด้านการบริหารจัดการความยั่งยืนถ้าอันนี้สนใจนะคะดีมากเลยค่ะสำหรับองค์กรและธุรกิจบริษัทไหนก็ได้ค่ะ5 วันเป็นเวิร์กช็อปที่แบบ intensive มากเลยและสนุกด้วยค่ะก็ถ้าอยากจะได้ข้อมูลเพิ่มเติมก็ไปที่ศาสิน sustainability.org ค่ะ
ครับเอาละครับสำหรับในช่วงเช้าวันนี้นะครับเราก็คงต้องขอตัวแล้วก็วันนี้ต้องขอบพระคุณคุณแพรมากนะครับที่มาเป็นคอมเมนเตอร์ประจำปีนี้หวังว่าปีหน้านะครับจะมาร่วมกันอีกรอบหนึ่งนะครับผมวันนี้ขอบพระคุณมากเลย
ขอบพระคุณค่ะ
ครับและสำหรับในช่วงนี้นะครับเราจะตัดภาพนะครับไปที่รายการตามปกติของทางรายการของเรานะครับแล้วก็เราจะกลับมาพบกันอีกครั้งหนึ่งแล้วเราจะมาร่วมลุ้นกันนะครับว่าทีมใดนะครับรวมไปถึงทีมศาสินนั้นมีโอกาสที่จะเป็นผู้ที่ชนะเลิศในการแข่งขันของปีนี้ได้หรือไม่ในเวลาประมาณ 15:30 น.นะครับผม